Traders, I hope you're all well. Welcome to Sniper Sundays. It is August the 18th. I hope you've all had a great weekend. And again, as always, get ready now to prepare ourselves for another week. And let's have another great week and catch lots of pips like last week. So, as always, going to start with the fundamentals first, looking ahead of next week so we can see what's coming up and be prepared. So, on Monday, tomorrow, we've got no real big high impact news. A little bit of news coming out, as you can see, but this isn't anything high impact. Usually, all we want to see is if you go onto Forex Factory here, as you can see, I always use this to show you what the upcoming news is going to be each day or each week. Then I usually just filter out what is not high impact, as you can see here in red. Apply that filter, and then each day you can see here on Monday there's not actually anything that we really need to be paying attention to. Tuesday we've got some Australian news, monetary policy meetings. Then on Wednesday we've got the we've got Canadian news, CPI news that's coming out, and then we have the FOMC meeting at 7 p.m. UK time, the Federal Reserve from America. So that was on Wednesday evening. And then Thursday, we got Euro news. We got some PMI data coming from Europe, in France and in Germany. And then we have some retail sales coming from New Zealand on Thursday evening. And then Friday, we got the some Canadian retail sales. The US, from the US, we got the head of the Federal Reserve speaking. And then Jax's what we got here is basically a meeting. Let me just bring up, I've got this somewhere for you guys to have a read or just have a look at these things so you understand them. What we got is we got a meeting of central bankers on Friday, which is the biggest, basically, this here on Friday is the biggest sort of meeting of the week, fundamentally. And basically, it's lots of people, lots of central bankers coming to have a talk and to speak about the current global markets. As you can see here, a key central bank gathering looms as the biggest event of the global markets this week. Investors hopeful policymakers could soothe nerves rattled by trade tensions and fresh fears about global growth. So it's about the worldwide economy. Having a meeting about that, see what they can do. Obviously, there's lots of talks about recession coming from different places in the world and so on. So that can be very high impact on Friday, revealing what is discussed through that meeting. Now, also, what's quite important this week is we saw a big sell-off on Euro last week. If we just go back here, we can see on Thursday we got news coming out from France and Germany. Now we saw a big sell-off on the Euro on the charts, as we saw that drop in Euro GBP, Euro AUD, Euro NZD, so on and so on. Well, also this week we got this. That was due to some bad GDP news coming out from places like Germany. Here you can see in Germany, Europe in crisis mode. Germany's in trouble. So basically, Germany, the largest economy in Euro, is in trouble and is on the edge of. There's reports it's on the edge of a recession. Now, obviously, that's not good for the euro. So this is weakening the euro. And then now this week we got the news coming out for the euro. More news coming from Germany. As you can see here, we got the Germany PMI, and then we've also got the French. So depending on how that comes out, not forecasted as good here. We could see another push lower on the euro as it weakens. People will be selling shorting the euro, and it'll be just generally getting weaker as signs now that there could be recessions coming in Germany, and different things coming out from Europe. We have to see how this comes out, how the fundamentals are affected next week. But in general, the strength of the euro is weakening because people don't want to be buying the euro. Anyone with euro that doesn't want to be holding euros, don't want to be selling euros because of the weakening economy. So thinking about that coming into next week, again, we get the fundamentals in our mind. then we paint the technical picture, and then we try and then we merge them both together. So we got Euro USD here. Let's start on the charts. So last week, what we were looking at was we were looking for a breakout of this zone here. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 days of just choppy action, sideways movement. I don't want to get caught into this until we saw some movement, and then we had a breakout as we saw that weakness on the euro and pushing down, as we then also saw the weakness on various other euro pairs. So what we were originally looking at is we were very, very close to this outer trend line here. So we thought that perhaps we could get a little push up, especially from around this level, a push up to touch that trend line, to then have a bigger push down to create, maybe come back down to this 1.100. Now, we sort of hovered around within that area once again, but then we just broke out on Tuesday, I believe this was. This was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, carried on pushing down. So Monday, we sort of just hovered around again, toying around with this 1.1200 level, but then we had that bearish move, still within that level area, and then we broke out the following day and continued to break down. So now we've broken out of that consolidation, and what we can see from there was we did have this trend line on here as well. You can see here, this was basically a fake out. We were pushed up, trying to break higher, couldn't break above this 1.1200 level. I'm going to move this out of the way for the moment. We couldn't break above this 1.1200 level here, so we were attempting to break above trend line resistance here, and we're trying to break above this resistance, but after so many days of trying, we've then just fallen over to the downside. So now we do look set to come down lower, come down to around that weekly support level of 1.10. And we can see here on Friday, we just finished off with a little spike to the downside as price pulled back. So after 4 days of a push down, we might see a little push up higher before rolling back over. So drop down to a 4-hour here. What we can see with euro is, as I said, we have now broken back below this 1.1200 level. The next major support is coming in here at the weekly support level at 1.100. Now you did see I did have some. Let me just go back to the daily. I did have this. Let me just add a new line. I do have this support level here, which is acting very strong. In the past, you can see support, support, support. Broke through, pushed back up a couple of weeks ago on the Fed meetings that came out, and weakened or strengthened the US dollar temporarily until we saw a pushback that the US dollar sell off once again. Now we come back down, and we're toying with that level once again. So let's just drop down to the 4-hour now. You can see we are actually trading below it. A little 4-hour bullish engulfing candle. So had some little momentum pushing up on Friday, just at the end of the day, but then, as explained, it was short-lived, and price just started to push back down again. Now, what we might do is come up and try and retest this level, or retest this area. And while we're trading below this level, I do think that we are going to keep coming down lower. So we just highlight this little level area here, highlight this region. Now we are coming back up to retest that right now. We're coming back up to retest that. We sort of have retested, and we're rejecting. So if this area can hold, this highlighted area can hold around here, we might come up and sort of test it a couple of more times. But if that can hold, then I do see us coming back down lower with the weaker euro at the moment. But we are also at interesting levels with the US dollar. So the US dollar index, measuring the strength of the US dollar. You can see here we're back up to that level, just as explained with the Euro USD. We're back up to that level where we had that push through and that fake out, when we had that Fed meeting, and we pulled all the way back down. Bearish week last week, the week before last, and then last week we pushed all the way back up again. So we're at this very interesting level with this resistance. If we can break through this, I do think that we are going to make a new high and come above this previous high here at 98.93 and push up higher and make a new high. Because in general, if we just zoom out on the daily chart or the weekly, we can see here that we are in an uptrend with the US dollar. The US dollar has been gaining strength. We are pushing higher, especially with this short-term daily move here, higher high, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and now we look set to break out of this resistance level. If we break out of this resistance level, then it does look like we're going to set to come up to this level and break higher and make a new higher high above this level here. If that happens, if we break this level and the US dollar strengthens, then on top of a weak euro, a stronger US dollar, we could see this come down to 1.100 very, very easily. So we're watching out for that coming into next week, but also keeping, we keep a close eye on how we act in here on the US dollar. We just dropped down to the 4 hour on the US dollar here. A little bit choppy around at the bottom down here, but we can see retracing here, having a sort of around that 61.8% retracement level now. So I want to see how we act on market open, see how if we can. We'll just adjust this down to here actually. So see this low here. We can see we're toying around with that 61.8%. Fibonacci extension does line up perfectly with former monthly support. So we could see a sell-off from around this area and push down, which would mean we would see pairs like Euro USD perhaps actually start to push up if we had a weaker dollar. But remember, we have to keep the euro in mind on the euro pairs, and specifically coming into the next couple of weeks. So US dollar, different options there. I'm waiting to see how this level will react. Obviously, we know that this highlighted level is a good area of resistance. We've seen that with 61.8% on the Fibonacci. So now I'm going to be watching price action around here, seeing if the US dollar does sell off, and then that will tell us a lot for a lot of the US dollar currencies. So Euro US dollar, going to be keeping an eye out for this highlighted region, as I said. If we keep trading below this, I do see us coming down and taking out this 1.100. Euro GBP, as explained on the last Sniper Sundays, we're very, very, very bullish on Euro GBP, mainly because of the weak pound, but we needed to have a pullback. Any trend needs a bit of a pullback. We can't just continuously keep pushing higher and higher and higher. We had that squeeze higher to that $93 the week before on the Friday. We had a squeeze just above here, and basically ever since market open last week, we were pushing down. So this was market open, pushed down straight away, came back, retesting that 9300 level, and then we showed some weakness and we took that short trade. So now we've dropped down, what are we, 170 pips. Yeah, we're at 170 pips from this entry here. I'm just going to clear this off to make it a little bit more clearer for us. So really nice trade on this last week. Now we are at support, 0.9100. We've taken most of our profit. And what I want to do is just sort of see how this level acts next week. You can see here on the monthly key levels, a huge key level. We've got this resistance area around here. We've come down, acting as support. Is this just a retracement before a pullback to go up even higher? This is what we need to think about. Obviously, as I said, the euro is weak, but what we have to remember is the pound is also weak as well. So even though we pull back 200 pips, I am going to be keeping an eye on this. Let's put a Fibonacci and see how we look from this move all the way up. You can see here we pull back to 50%, also lining up with that 0.9100. So we could keep pushing up higher, but it all depends on the euro. The euro could really sell off, could get really weak, and we could see an even bigger push down. So at the moment, Euro GBP, we've had that big move. We've had that 170 pip move that we took last week. Not currently looking for a new trade in this just yet. Want to see a little bit more. Want to see what price action does. If we come back up to sort of 0.9200, and then we see that price is struggling to push up any higher once again, then we could possibly even look for taking a new short trade from that level, from this level down. But as I said, we might get to this level and see that the bulls are very strong, or most probably because of a weaker pound. We might even be able to come up higher. So at the moment, stand on the side. I'm going to wait for price to show us more. Still holding a percentage of the short trade that we took, and we're 170 pips in profit. And I'm going to let that keep riding down. Let's see how far this can go until we look at maybe possibly taking a hedge trade next week, and we might look for a hedge trade to come back up for a minimum of 100 pips. Euro AUD, nice trade on this as well. So we had that huge push up. We can see here we had that resistance at 1.656750. On a weekly chart here, I'm just going to get rid of this for a minute. On a weekly chart here, we saw last week how price had closed below the 1.6500 level perfectly. So we will drop down to the daily. We're looking for a good entry to be able to jump in and take a short on this pair. So we had this nice big spike here. Then we had a bearish engulfing. Then we came back up once again, another bearish engulfing on a daily, and then we broke back below the 1.6500, retested that again, and now we look to be set to come down and push down lower. Again, we are in good profit on this. Currently still holding this trade. We're in the middle of sort of 1.6250 support here, and 1.6500, which we've broken through. I do see this perhaps coming down to tap this level first, and from here again we could look at possibly taking some hedge trades to go long. But currently with the weaker euro, I'm going to just take my time on this. We're still holding a partial part of our trade on this. So I'm going to let this continue to just trend down, let the trade do the work for us, and let's see how far we can go with this. See here we had this beautiful head and shoulders pattern here, which we see works time and time again, and that also line up perfectly with our Fibonacci retracement here. As you can see here, we had this 50%, we had this double top. This is the first we came up, we found resistance, came back up, and just as before this big push down, that's when I alerted the group to take a short trade, and then we pushed down and continued to push down all throughout the rest of the week. Now we're down at very close to the Fibonacci extension here at minus 27%. So I do think the price is just going to come down and eventually roll over and come down to around this 1.6300 or 1.6250. From there, then we'll reevaluate and see where we want to go with this pair next. But as I said, we're holding short trades, so no new trade or no rush on taking a new trade on this just yet. You see here, nice and simple, support, broke through, acting as resistance, and now we're pushing down. So I'm looking at coming down to 1.6250. GBP USD had that bullish push that I've been speaking about for the last 2 weeks. So overall, don't get me wrong, we are very, very bearish on the Great British Pound. You can see here weekly, we have a sort of inside bar, even though we had a nice strong week last week, sort of inside bar formation here. You can see the previous week candlestick is engulfing last week. So we're going to be watching price now sort of probably fluctuate between these levels now until we get the next big move, and then a breakout of this level is going to see a bigger move with GBP. So what I'm expecting, and as explained on last week's Sniper Sundays, that if we could see a push higher, we may come back and see a retest of 1.2250. Now on the daily chart, what I want to highlight here is market structure as always, higher highs, higher lows, etc. So here on the daily, you can see we've had this push down, made a lower low, pull back up. Let me just highlight this for you guys. So push down, making a lower low, then a push up higher, making a lower high, and then on the daily, push down, lower low. So now we're pushing back up either to possibly make a lower high or to break up higher. Now we know that the pound is weak, so we don't nobody really expects this to come up too much higher, but always expect the unexpected, as you can see in the market. Because with the pound, when we're so close to this monthly key level 1.200, after this kind of daily candle, people would have bet their houses that this was going to come down a little bit lower, and then all it done was reversed and went back up to the upside. So what we know is that this level is the last lower high on the daily chart. So I'll be watching for price to come back up to sort of test this level, maybe come a little bit short of this level, But this is an interesting level on this sort of daily, on the daily time frame and the market structure. I do think we could possibly come back up and test the 1.2250 weekly resistance level. But this level here will also be interesting because we might come up here, start to fail and to push up higher, see some weakness. And because we've identified this as the last lower high on the daily chart, we know that if we do come up to this sort of level, this may be a good shorting opportunity around this region to now come back down to that 1.20 and maybe even lower. So keeping an eye on that as a setup next week. But at the moment, I do think that the pound has a little bit more room to the upside and perhaps come up to here and maybe even test this weekly resistance at 1.2250. GBP JPY, you can just see here weekly, a little bit choppy, but we came down, tapped the 12750 support level, and as explained last week, I was looking to come back up to the 130. Daily chart, you can see here on that weekly support level, 1, 2, 3. We had this really nice morning star formation. Next day we came back down, retested the weekly support 12750, and we bounced off that and push up to the upside. We're trying to attack that 130 level. So at the moment we dropped down to the 4 hour. You can see that this price is trending higher now. Short term on the 4 hour we are bullish. We've got higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. So we may come down, make a higher low before making a higher high. Let me just put a trend line on this. This is the short term trend. So we've got this trend on here. We could always come back down to sort of tap this region. This will be acting as a support. Should we break that, then I think we're going to come down lower. But this may act as support, push up again, tap that 130 level, and from there we need to reevaluate how the pound is going to be acting. Can the pound keep pushing higher, or are the bears going to come back in and take pound lower once again? You see this area is acting as a nice level of support. If we just zoom out here, we can see a nice area of a support and also inverse head and shoulders sort of movement. See here, left shoulder, this is the head, and then we've sort of formed the right shoulder already, but we may come down and retest that level, retest this counter trend line, retest this area of support before pushing higher once again. So we just made a new higher high, as you can see, above this last higher high on the short-term 4-hour trend, 4-hour and 1-hour trend. But remember, overall, we are bearish. We are hugely bearish on GBP JPY at the moment. So we are looking at once price comes up on the short-term trend. Once the price comes up, if we see any sort of signs of weakness around here, then just like on GBP USD, we may be looking at taking a short trade to come down. We might even see a short trade. We might even see weakness very early in the week once market opens, and then look at coming down to 1.2500. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this and seeing how the pound reacts at the start of the week. Can we push a little bit higher before rolling over to the downside, or will we perhaps look at taking short trades early in the week? I will have a look and see. USD CAD, a little bit of a sell-off on Friday. So we've been watching this and just stalking it, seeing price come up. You can see here on the daily, we come up and tested this 78% fib. I have been looking at the bigger picture, the weekly fib from the very, very top, and expecting price to come up and tap this 61.8% level, and then we could be looking at a bigger swing trade down. However, on Friday, we didn't manage to come up to that level. We have made a double top, quite a nice double top at that. So you can see here, we've had this initial push up higher, a bit of an even star formation, came down, pushed back up, but this nice even star formation here. And as I said, you can see it's a nice double top. So price coming back down now after a little push down on Friday, getting very, very close to weekly support at 1.32500. So would not want to be selling it yet because we're so close to support and we could see a little push back up higher. But what I am looking at is short trades coming on this pair now coming into next week. So I'll be watching price as it gets down to this sort of region here. Key level of support. Because there is still a possibility that we might even go higher once again. Because remember what I said about market structure? Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And by highlighting this last week, he explained that even though we had this big sell-off and we came down to test this third touch of the trend line, as I keep explaining, the third touch of the trend line is the most important. That's where we get the power to either break through or have a big push up higher. So you can see here point 1, point 2, had point 3, pushed up, tried to make a high above this high, but failed. You can see here on the 4 hour, you can see the price action just starting to slow down here. If you zoom in here, see this 1, 2, 3 evening star formation on the candlesticks, and then we started to pull. We had that little bit of a sell-off on Friday. But as I said, if we are going to break and come down lower on USD CAD, you don't want to sell now at these sort of levels because you don't sell at support. You want to be selling at resistance. So I'm going to be watching how price reacts around here. Can we break through this trend line on the 4th test, or will we push back up higher once again? And yeah, if we do push back up higher, then we might see. If we do find support here, and we do see price push back up higher, then and then we start to slow down once again, we could possibly look at taking a short trade then. So what I mean by that is, if price comes down, test this level of support here, and then we find some support and push up, we could come back up into sort of this level here. We can see we have resistance, support, support. We've broken through here. We haven't retested it as resistance yet. We could pull back up to that level, and then from here we could look at taking a short trade if the signs are there to be met, and we could look at taking a short trade from there for a nice swing trade down. So USD CAD is on our watch list. So that's one of the main pairs on my watch list at the moment. So I'll be watching that as soon as the market opens and all next week. Just as well as the GBP trades, GBP JPY, GBP USD, and all the other trades really. But USD CAD, I do see a good setup coming up here next week. USD JPY, last Sniper Sundays I explained how we had this little spike lower, taking out the previous lows, and as I explained, we often see this before seeing a reversal. Now the next day we came a little bit lower once again, and then the following day we had that reversal, big 4 hour bullish engulfing, and a nice push higher. Now since that, we've come back down and retested the 10600 level again, so we pushed back up, broke back above resistance, come back acting as support, and currently we're using that as a sort of a base to try and push higher. Now it's choppy price action here. I highlighted this level last week that I was watching price to come down into sort of this region for me to take a long. We came down, but just came a bit short of where I would like, so I haven't taken a trade yet. But I am looking at this pair to come higher. Again, a little bit like GBP JPY, I think we might come down a little bit first. So I'm going to be watching for this to come down, sort of test anywhere in these regions, and possibly even back down into this highlighted level. And if we can get the right price action set up, I will be looking at taking long trades. Now again, obviously this is dependent on the US dollar, seeing how whether we are able to break through resistance or not. If we can, if this does break higher, then yes, I do think USD JPY is going to come up higher as well, obviously with the US dollar. So I'll be watching out for that. But I am looking out for long trades on USD JPY. I prefer the long setup. We're finding lots of support around this 10600 level. So I'll be looking for longs on this and keeping this on my watch list next week. But what we have to take into consideration with both USD and USD CAD is we've got Canadian news coming out during the week next week, and we've got lots of USD news coming out as well with those FOMC meetings. Let me just go here. Wednesday, CPI for the CAD, FOMC meeting on Wednesday for the US dollar, and then obviously we have on Friday, same again, core retail sales for the Canadian dollar, and then we have the big meeting from the Federal Reserve on Friday as well. So these can be tricky pairs to trade. So Wednesday will be a busy day for USD CAD, and Friday. So I'm going to keep an eye on these and see how they react early in the week, but don't jump into a trade too early on these, as we have got quite a lot of fundamentals out. So I'll be watching and assessing this and updating the group as we get closer to that news and see what price action shows us. USD JPY, as I just covered. Aussie dollar. Now, Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar have been a bit choppy and a bit boring the last week. This is the daily chart. You can see here, this price has been trapped between this sort of level. I've been looking for trades on this, but it's been hard because we've just been choppy. So I'm staying away until we see something a bit more. Not going to waste too much time covering this at the moment. We are bearish on this pair overall, as well as New Zealand dollar. But at the moment, we're just kind of just moving sideways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of just moving sideways since this initial push down lower. So until we get a little bit more, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I am still watching it next week, but I will be once we see a little bit more, then I'll update. At the moment, we're just moving sideways, and there's no real sign of which way this is going to go next. So not really interested in that at the moment. Same as New Zealand dollar. Looking at this possibly coming down to 0.6300. Drop down to the daily here. You see also we're sort of below this, in between 0.6300 and 0.6700. Like I've shown you how to work out the weekly. We don't need to use this as in the webinar, how to work out your weekly levels. We can use this tool to work out exactly 50% halfway between the two monthly key levels. But here, obviously, 0.6300 and 0.6700, we know that is 0.6500 by simple maths. But that's a good way to use it, that Fibonacci, just to find out that 50% and the middle between the two. So we're trading below that here, 0.6500. That's why I'm just brought that to your attention. We have tried to push back up higher since this spike, but again, it's just been choppy days and not really much happening for New Zealand dollar, just moving sideways. So not really interested in this one at the moment either until we get a little bit more, until we start showing us some more signs and something a little bit more inviting. At the moment, it's just moving sideways. It's boring. There's nothing really to take on this trade at the moment. Now, gold, interesting one on gold. So I explained on last week's Sniper Sundays exactly basically what happened. So I was looking for price to have a surge through this resistance. You can see here on the weekly chart. I was expecting a surge through here, possibly up to 1550, because we have this really nice level of support over here on the monthly and weekly chart. You can see here this real strong level of support. So I was expecting price to push up and possibly even tap that, but and to come up to that sort of towards that area. Now last week we done exactly that, and there was a nice opportunity to take short trades, but we are still overall bullish on gold and very, very bullish at that. So I'm not in any rush to take short trades on it. Like I explained, if you set a rocket off into the sky, it usually takes a few seconds before it sort of is at a standstill in midair before it starts to turn over and come back down again. If we are going to come down on gold, it's going to take it. I don't think it's going to be very, very sharp. You might have another couple of weeks of sort of doji candles around here, a bit of choppy price action around this sort of level before making a move lower. If we do get a move lower from these sort of levels, so this area is quite interesting. We'll drop down to the daily. We can see here we're quite choppy. You can see here high highs, high lows, high highs, high lows. We are still in a bullish trend here, so I don't want to sell against it right now. Obviously, for the retracements, when we get the sign of a retracement, we can take a short on gold for a couple of hundred pips. But obviously, long term, we know that gold is a bullish market. So we're looking at taking short-term short trades. There's nothing wrong with taking getting a couple of hundred pips on a retracement. And as I've always explained, we never know that could be 100 pip, 200 pip, or we could have a retracement of 500 pips before then going higher. So rather than sitting and watching gold retrace 500 pips, we want to capitalize and make money on that. So around here, you can see choppy, choppy, choppy. Any push down, we push back up. On the daily chart, you can see here any push down that we've made, any little push down, we push back up, and you can see these little spikes to the downside. So we are still trending higher. We are still making higher highs, and we are still making higher lows. Now, what I was watching here on Friday was this coming towards this trend line and attempting to break out. and once again we failed to be able to do so. So price, let's get rid of this line for the moment. Price came down, watching it here, was making a fake out, looking like price was going to break through this trend line, and then we pushed all the way back up. Not really a morning star formation because this candlestick wasn't too bullish, but you can see here 1, 2, and a sort of morning star, a weak morning star formation. So from here we could see gold push off here once again. Third touch of this off the trend line, you can see a push back up and managed to achieve that 1550 level. As you can see here, touch 1, touch 2, touch 3. So keep an eye on gold. Again, not rushing to jump into it. I do think we could come up higher, take out this last high. I was expecting that last week, but we just hovered. We got up to these levels and failed to push up higher. I do think we could still come up and make a new high above this 1535. Come up to 1540, 1550 perhaps, and then from there we might possibly look at taking some short trades once again. See, we might come down for a larger retracement down by a couple of hundred pips or so, but we'll see. But at the moment, we can see here we are being supported by trendline support. We do have that 1500 psychological level just below us here. So I'll be watching for price. I wouldn't be looking at taking a short trade while we are. I wouldn't be looking at taking a short trade while we're trading above 1500 and above this counter trend line. It would be silly to take any short trades here with such support around this level. So around these levels here, we could be looking at buying the dips around these levels here, looking for long trades to come up higher. So yeah, I'm going to be watching this coming into next week and seeing how we react on there. US oil, last one is right. US oil, we had a really nice long trade where we dropped out of this. We had this fake out of this trend line, dropped down to $50.50 or $51 was the actual target. Push back up 700 pips, and so nice clean here chart with oil. You can see here, if I just take this away, we've got this inner trend line, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, came up, tested that, pushed down, and we found some resistance. But I'm going to clear this one off and just show you what happens a lot on trend lines. Something that you can learn is that when we have a trend line like this, I'm just going to take this away now as well. You can often see that we have 0.1, 0.2, and we break through, and then price is a fake out. It pushes back up, and then it comes back and retests that trend line. So you can see here, this trend line here. Even though now we often do adjust our trend line. So now this would be your new point on the trend line as it's made a new low. But keep this trend line here still, because it can still act as a trend line. Because now that we've broken back above the trend line here, see how we're coming down and retesting it as support. We could push off this, and in the future we could come down and use this as support once again. And this is just slippage. This is just showing a fake out here, and we can use this trend line as support once again. Now, we're using this as support at the moment. We are long on this from the bottom, with most of our profits taken out of the market now. But I'm keeping an eye on this because we can't forget the fact that we have had this third touch of this trend line, and there is still the possibility of this breaking down to the downside and breaking through this trend line and breaking down lower. So I'm keeping an eye on this at the moment. Coming into next week, we are retesting this trend line here. If I just zoom out, we can see we've got this sort of inverse head and shoulders area coming through here. See this support here. We've got this sort of inverse head and shoulders that's playing out here with this left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So we might be able to bounce off this and find this area as support. So keeping a close eye on oil coming into next week. See what happens fundamentally. But at the moment, I'm not looking at taking a trade. We're in between two sort of levels. We're pushing down from this bearish move here, but overall we are obviously quite bullish. So a bit of a tricky one of oil at the moment, so I'm not going to try and call it right now. But next week we'll see. We've had two doji days after pushing down, finding support in this area. If this area can hold a support and this trend line, too confident for support, so we could push up higher. But I'm going to catch up with this one next week. So in general, guys, the whole market, got some predictions for next week. Got some setups that we're going to be looking out for. which obviously I'll still keep updating. But yeah, I'll let you know. At the moment, we have to see how the market opens. There's a lot of fundamentals next week, so we just need to keep an eye on how the fundamentals affect the market. I'm not going to make too many predictions. We're going to just keep following the market on a daily basis, and I'll update. At the moment, though, we have to, as I said, I brought to the attention that the euro is quite weak at the moment, and the US dollar is at a very important level here at that resistance. So we need to keep in mind euro weakness. Is it going to get weaker with the euro news coming out? Is the US dollar going to be able to break this resistance? If we can, then we might see increased US dollar strength, which is going to push down any pairs crosses with the US dollar, like Euro USD, Aussie dollar against the US dollar, New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. If we get a stronger dollar, Aussie dollar is going to come down, New Zealand dollar is going to come down, and US dollar is going to come down. So that level on the dollar index is quite important to see. Is that going to hold, or are we going to break through and come up higher? So fundamentally, there's lots to come out for the euro and for the US dollar. So it's can't really call it right now. We can see what our setups are. Be aware, be alert coming into next week, and so that we know what's in front of us and we're prepared to trade it. So next week, lots of fundamentals. We'll have to analyze it and take each day as it comes, and I'll update each day. I'm going to do the next webinar on Tuesday or Wednesday this week as well. So I'll let you know tomorrow what day that's going to be. But yeah, either Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to do the next webinar for you guys. So yeah, I'll catch up with you then as well. But have a great evening, and I'll see you on Monday for the morning call. Thank you.